The Vatican and Fatima apparition. Is this a global deception? This is our topic today. Please subscribe to my channel. This is the primordial wave, and I am the wisdomizer. So, if you are a Catholic, as well as non-Catholics alike, you must have heard, you must have read, you must have heard somebody or the media talk about the Fatima prophecy. And in the story, we were told that in 1917, three little peasant children were attending the flock in the countryside of Fatima, and they had a strange, otherworldly encounter, an extraterrestrial encounter. And in this encounter, they saw a being or an entity that identified herself as the Blessed Mother of God, the Virgin Mary, right? And this very event and the subsequent prophecies that followed captured global attention. The world paid attention to the prophecy that were coming out of Fatima, right? Businessmen, world leaders, politicians, policymakers, bankers, um, skeptics, atheists, religious leader, everyone paid attention to the prophecy of Fatima, right? When I was a child growing up, I attended Catholic catechism and I was catechized and I was indoctrinated like every other religious person growing up in a religious family. I was taught about this event and it captured my attention as a child, right? But as a child, I didn't have the intellectual capacity to ask certain questions. I digested um, naively this very story because there was no room to question. In religious indoctrination and catechization, you don't question, you recite and you digest, just as they do in many religious cycles, including in Islamic religious education. You recite, you memorize, and you practice. There's no room for critical assessment, for critical appraisal. So many people grow up throughout their life without have even knowing or even thinking that it is possible to examine the religious context in which you grew up, right? So until I grew up, begin to be exposed to world history, to world geopolitical events, to begin to study the major religions of the world, the doctrines, begin to study political theories and philosophies. Um, I did not have what it takes to examine this Fatima story and see if it is true. And if it is not true, is it a psychological operation? And if it is a psyop, who are those responsible in creating this psychological operation that dominated the mind of people across the planet, right? Many people, because of the Fatima prophecy, converted to Catholicism, you know. So is it possible for ecclesiastical authority, the Vatican ecclesiastical authority to create such story in collusion, in collaboration with certain internationalists, right? Is that possible? Very possible. So we are going to examine the events of 1917 and see that there could be other interpretations to this story. Because we know that world global intelligence agencies have created and utilized religious stories to control the masses, to create this mass hive mind. And by doing that, they can redirect everybody's mind like sheep towards certain agenda. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. So we are going to take a look at this story critically. This story, examining this very event might cause some people to be very upset, but here we're dealing with fact. We're dealing with reason. We're not dealing with emotions, right? We're dealing with subjecting things to a factual analysis and see if it can stand the test of time. That is what we do here at the Primordial Wave. So I am going to share my screen and we can take the analysis from that place. And you have to pardon me, my slide is usually pictographical, right? Pictograph, like images, more than just putting a lot of words, because I'm trying to activate my right brain, which deals more with imagery, right? We've been subjected for a long time with just using our left brain. I'm not going to put a lot of words. I put pictograph, pictures. Then I'll explain what I want to talk about. So I'm going to share my screen. And this is going to be our topic. The Vatican and Fatima apparition, a global deception. You know, many people have not even thought about it. Is that possible that a lich, the hideous, diabolical elite, the rulers, the puppet masters who are in the dark places hiding, is that possible that they can create an event of this global proportion for mass behavior control? Of course, we know in this modern time, mass behavior modification is a tool of the lich. They utilize it all the time. Advanced, highly advanced mass behavior modification, where they control the behaviors of many people on this planet, utilizing religion, utilizing politics, utilizing torture, utilizing any kind of trauma in a mass level to modify and to control the behavior and to guide the people like sheep towards specific direction that they want to take the world, right? It has happened all the time and it continues to happen. Many things you watch in the media, even your favorite media, is nothing but psychological operation. Most of this so-called news you hear is something they create to feed your consciousness with. And you see how majority of the people on the planet are buying into these narratives, right? The three major, all the medias in the United States, for example, is only controlled by 6 mega corporations. 6, which means it's only 6 entities that controls mass information. That is a lot of power. So if you choose a particular media that you like to listen to, it could be right wing, it could be left wing. 6 entities run all these platforms. So these people have a lot of power. And we know that the CIA and other global intelligence agencies have mind control programs, MK Ultra mind programs. The CIA particularly have Project Mockingbird, where they fabricate false information. They create false narrative in the media, and that people begin to digest and absorb and carry out that narrative that is completely false, right? It happens all the time. And that is why critical examination of things are very important to us in this platform. And here we are going to subject this Vatican created story to analysis and see what is going on here. Truth is, there's no religious, political, social, cultural alliance than truth. So we stand on the truth. You look at the truth and we question for the truth. And if you find the truth, doesn't matter what the structural, the teaching structure, the teaching construct is telling us we have to go for the truth. So, Fatima. So what was going on in 1917? You know, we did our due diligence. We studied the history of 1917. It was a period of tension. So, and that is how we begin to even imagine that something might be going on other than what we are being told. 1917 was a period of revolution, revolution, you know, and this revolution was what will set the pace between East and West. Russia with communism and the Western Anglo-European establishment on the other side with capitalism. So there was a fight between these two economic ideologies, huge fight between communism and capitalism. And the revolution of Russia, the revolution that finally morphed, metamorphosized as communism began proper revolution during the 1917s. So that is very important. It is this same year that the Blessed Virgin Mary was said to have manifested in Fatima. And let me retract a little bit. Communist revolution did not just start in 1917. There were other factors that were happening before, like in 1898, a group of 9 people came together in a place called Minsk, right? And these were representatives of the working class. They wanted to initiate revolution, right? Even though this particular meeting was dismantled by the police force, by the authorities of the time, by the status quo, right? But later on, we see that the authority, the czars in Russia, were not able to squash or to destroy the communist tendencies that emerged out of the teachings of Karl Marx, right? Karl Marx. So in 1917, Vladimir Lenin led this Bolshevik revolution in Russia, right? This is Vladimir Lenin. He led the Bolshevik revolution. He's a brilliant communist man, a fanatical, well-committed communist individual whose oratory, whose speeches, whose writings was very important when you look at the history of Russian Revolution. So this was the background of the 1917 apparition. And we know that the fight between the West and the East was like the eternal fight between God, good and evil, or God and the devil. You know, even though I don't know which one is God and which one is evil between these two ideologies. I'm not taking stand here. I'm not taking stand against communism. I detest communism. I think it's anti-human. I think it's diabolical. But here, I'm just trying to examine the fact, the background of 1917 that led to the emergence of the Fatima apparition, right? And that is what begins to lead me to conceptualize the possibility of Western power elite to utilize PSYOP, psychological operation, to neutralize the emergence of communism, right? Because the message of Virgin Mary was political in nature, And as I have said, the power elite has always, and they continue to do that, utilize religion for mass behavioral modification, plain and simple, right? So now, this story of Fatima, is that the creation of Euro-American secret society, the elite, because they reacted to the Bolshevik Revolution. It was the Bolshevik Revolution that led to the emergence of what you call the Social Democratic Workers' Party in Russia, which led finally to the Soviet Union, right? So we know for certain that the Euro-American establishment, the secret society, the banking cartels, the banking establishment did not like the emergence of Russia, right, as a communist state. And we see constantly the message of the Blessed Virgin Mary saying that Russia will spread her error across the planet and many people will suffer. And we know that This very message helped in the neutralization of communism because it was the West fighting the evil communist propaganda around the planet. So now, the game of the Atlanticists, and I'm going to read what Atlantism implies. Atlantis is like a union between North America and European countries, an alliance, a political, geostrategic political alliance was very strong in terms of banking, in terms of military defense, in terms of working together as to achieve certain goal. So these people are united, and Rome being part of Europe must have played a strategic game, a strategic manipulation in collaboration with these Atlanticists to bring Western power to the forefront and destroy communism, right? We know that Pope John Paul II, for example, was an ardent devotee to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and he was also very vocal in condemning communism. So the church from the onset was anti-communist. I'm not saying which is wrong or which is good. I'm just looking at facts objectively. The church, Catholic Church, was very antagonistic to communism, right? So what do we mean by Atlanticist or Atlantism? Atlantism, also known as transatlantism, is the belief in or support for a close relationship between the United States and Canada on the one hand, and European countries on the other hand, regarding political, economic, and defense issues, in the belief that it would maintain the security and prosperity of the participating countries on well, let me just stop here. I don't know what I was writing here, but the main argument of these people is that there is a need to have this alliance between Europe and North America for political, geostrategic political alliance, because it will help their greater cause, right? So this union has been in place even in 1917, right? And these power elites come together. They came together to wage war against the rise of communism. And they are aware, especially the intelligence agencies in England, for example, they are aware a lot of psychological operation that went on to neutralize communism. The communist country, Russia, the Soviet Union, were also doing their own share, trying to propagate their communist propaganda across the world. And the West was also trying to make sure that Russia does not spread communist philosophies across the world. So 1917, this is the background of 1917, was a period of chaos. Revolution of 1917 happened when? February 1917. And by May, Virgin Mary appeared, right? Virgin Mary appeared. So let's continue. So the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to three little children, as I've stated earlier, on May 13th, 1917. The children were Francisco, Lucy, and Jacinta. Remember, when I was a child, we were reciting catechism, and this image was all over the place. This image, we have like statues of these children with Virgin Mary, and we're all kneeling down and saying the rosary on a regular, weekly, daily basis sometimes. So this story, I'm very familiar with this story. But as I said, I've never had opportunity for a critical examination until I begin to study independent of religious indoctrination, right? So now, let me go back. The month of May, we got to understand the month of May, the elite, paganism, and secret society, the esoteric dimension, the esoteric aspect of the month of May throughout the Western Hemisphere, throughout the Western society. So is that by chance that they chose the same way, the same month of May, which is very important in the esoteric, occult, pagan practices of the Celtic religion, to be identified as the month that Virgin Mary appeared on this to these children? So why did they choose the month of May? Even up to now, the month of May is very important in the Western Hemisphere. They still do these parades during the month of May. Is a lot of rituals going on, and this ritual is very astrological. This ritual all over the Western society during the month of May is very esoteric, is very astrological, is astrologically based. And this power elites, the controllers of this planet, right, understand the significance of date. You see, May 13, the number 13, anyone who studied numerology and the occult understand that the number 13 is very important in the occult cycle, right? So the choice of this month, having studied many documents relating to esotericism and the occult, means that that month was chosen particularly for a purpose. It was particularly for a purpose that they chose May number 13, right? May number 13. So let's look at the month of May in relation to the apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary, as we are told. So the month of May in Europe, in the Western world, is the month of the Celtic Beltane ritual festivals, right? Which continues up to this day, right? The old Celtic name for May Day is Beltane. Beltane marks the height of spring and the flourishing of vegetation. The planet is flourishing. Remember, the planet is feminine energy. The earth, or Tiamat, or Gaia, is feminine energy. So are they corresponding this esoteric knowledge of the planet springing to life in springtime to the coming of another feminine entity from interdimension? Are they? Okay. So Beltane is a Celtic word which means fire of Bel. This is ritualist. That month is full of occult ritualism. The month of May in the West is full of occult ritualism. So Beltane, in the ancient Celtic word, means fire of Bel. And who is Bel? Bel is the god Baal. Baal is Satan, right? Here, when they encode, we decode. That's what we do here. We try to decode and demystify to the people the hidden deceptions that cuts across this planet, right? The deception of the masses. So Bel is Baal. So the month of May is dedicated to who? Baal or Baal or Satan, right? Bel was a Celtic god. It is a fire festival. So this Beltane ritual is a fire festival that celebrates the coming of summer and the fertility of the coming year. You see a lot of ritualism with fire. They do perform all kinds of esoteric, secret society, occult practices that deals with fire, right? The month of May in the Western society. If you don't live in the Western society, you might not know a lot of things they are telling you, because has nothing to do with God. It has more to do with certain traditions they have, esoteric traditions, occult traditions, which they just translated into, quote unquote, the church, right? So this is the pictograph of Bel or Baal. Bel is Baal, and Baal is Marduk. Marduk is Satan, right? In Sumerian mythology, when you study the Sumerian cuneiform, you see Bel is Baal. In some places it's called Shamash, the sun god, right? But So Baal is Baal, and that is how in the Celtic religion they normally depict him. Again, go beyond this depiction because they are talking of this incarnate entity. We're not talking of, we're talking of, they are talking of entity that is not human. So they are doing anthropomorphism. So don't hang up with the picture. The picture is a representation of something that is not physical, something that is not corporal. But the bottom line is that the month of May is dedicated to Baal or Baal, right? And there's a lot of fire ritual, fertility ritual in Europe in the month of May. And Virgin Mary was said to have come on May 13. And I said, when you study numerology and your occult, you know that the month, the number 13 is very central. Sometimes when they want to assassinate people, they wait for a certain day of the month or of the year, because that number is very important to these people who are in cahoots, in alignment with satanic forces, right? So again, at Belton, the Pleiades star cluster rises just before sunrise. Again, this is the month of May. The Pleiades star constellation, right? And we know that there are certain entities that live in this dimension. Okay, so at Belton, the Pleiades star cluster rises just before sunrise. The Pleiades is known as the Seven Sisters, right? This star constellation is known as the Seven Sisters. That is how they depict it anthropomorphically. These are seven bright stars in the constellation of Taurus. This is not 6, but 7. 7 bright stars in the constellation of Taurus. So the Seven Sisters dwell in the constellation of the star system Taurus, right? As I say, this ritual they are doing is very, very astrological. And I'm going to read from this book titled We Are All Dead. We Are All Dead by Adrian Donington, right? Who are the Pleiades? The Pleiades are certain extraterrestrial entities that continues to come to this planet to give people message. There are many people who have claimed that this being, feminine being or masculine being, have come from the constellation of Taurus or from Pleiades to give message of what is going to happen to this planet. Is Virgin Mary part of the Pleiades, right? Entities. So let me read what this guy wrote about the Pleiadians, these extraterrestrial entities, right? He said, they are, talking about the Pleiades, they are both group of beings who are described as tall, fair skin, you know, blonde hair, and blue eyes, right? These are the Pleiadians. Pleiadians described as fair skin, white skin, blonde hair, like European blonde hair, and with blue eyes. These are European features, right? These are European features, and this author, this writer, is describing the Pleiadian, these extraterrestrial entities that continues up to now to manifest to different people on this planet, to be coming from the constellation of Pleiades, in the constellation we call the Pleiadian constellation. So many other people, researchers, have said that Joseph Smith, who brought the Mormon religion, received his message or his revelation from entity that came from the Pleiadians, right? That the so-called angel that Joseph Smith met, that gave him the message, the sacred texts he gave to his followers, came from the Pleiadians, right? So there are what you may call extraterrestrial or alien visitation to this planet that has been happening over and over down through history, right? So The point is that the month of May, the choice of the month of May, which correspond with astrological festivals in Europe in alignment to the constellation of Taurus, in alignment to the Pleiadian constellation, is this quote unquote God's mother coming to the earth, or is this entity, blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin, coming from the Pleiadian constellation, right? This is one of the things we have to examine. So let's continue to look at the month of May in the European society. The Germans has a festival they call I don't know if I'm going to say this word right. I don't speak German. Uh, Walpurgis, Walpurgis night, celebrated again in the month of May. So in the month of May in the Western Hemisphere, in the Western society, it's full of rituals, occult rituals dealing with fire, the fire of Baal. Baal is Baal. So the Blessed Virgin Mary chose this month to manifest to these three children. And is this being who identified as the Mother of God a Pleiadian alien, a Pleiadian extraterrestrial, right? So again, in the Western society, in Russia as well, we see the month of May is a month of parade. That's what they call May Day parade. If you live in the West, you're familiar with May Day parade. So these are ritual. These are ritualistic ceremonies in alignment with astrology, very astrological in alignment, right? So we've spoken about this, the rituals going on. Another ritual going on is the Morris dancing in the month of May, ritual dancing with flamboyant floral style costume celebrated in the month of May. They wear flowers, because vegetation is coming up. The planet is beginning to spring new life. Again, this is nature worship. This is ritual. They do sometimes they paint their faces in black, but they usually decorate themselves with natural flora, with beautiful flowers, right? Practice in the month of May in the Western world. So the choice of Virgin Mary manifesting during this period of intense occult ritual in Europe is making us critically question, is this entity a manifestation of the Pleiadians, the entity living in this constellation, the being living in this constellation? These beings first came to this planet maybe 10,000 BCE. The first arrival to this planet, excuse me, happened in 10,000 BC. Excuse me. And they continue to manifest to different people, giving messages as to the state of the planet, as to the state of changes to come. It's been happening over and over and over. But maybe the church was involved, and the church is universal. They're able to project this message across the world. So again, the maypole dance, another ritual. And when they are talking of maypole, of course, they're talking of the North Pole. Is again astrological ritual going on in the Western world. The maypole dance is a ritual dance performed around a tall pole, decorated with beautiful flowers and ribbons. It is a spring fertility ritual. Again, spring fertility ritual, right? The pole signifies the North Pole. Everything is astrological. Everything is astronomical. Astrological, I mean to say. So much ritual going on in Europe, nature worship, occult practices. The month of May is the month of Baal. And Baal is Satan. Baal is Marduk in Samaria, right? We see again the crowning of the Queen of May. Pay attention, because our job is to decode what is going on. The crowning of the Queen of May with flora, with flower wreath in Europe. In the Western society, they perform this during the month of May. They crown a a female with a crown, which they call the crowning of the May Queen. And later on, we see that Virgin Mary become the May Queen, right? This ritual has been there before in Europe. This occult practice, this occult ritual has been going on. Now, they identified Virgin Mary as the May Queen, and they continues to practice the ritual of crowning her as the May Queen, right? Again, we hear what he called the May devotion. The May devotion. If you're a Catholic, you know what I'm talking about. The month of May is dedicated to Virgin Mary. So these are not happenstance. These are not chances. The same month down through thousands of years in the Western society dedicated to Baal, dedicated to Satan, dedicated to ritual worship, dealing with fire, dealing with astrological events, is dedicated to the month of devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Again, I'm asking the question, is this entity that manifested as Blessed Virgin Mary, when we see the picture, we see him drawn in phenotypically like a European woman, like a European woman. So is this a Pleiadian entity that manifested to these children? Because Pleiadians have been coming to this planet, let's say, I think their first period of appearance on this planet was maybe 10,000 BCE, and they continues to come to certain people, reveal themselves to certain people to give message. They look like white skin with blonde hair and blue eyes. Pleiadians, these are extraterrestrial entities, right? That continues to manifest to give people. We're not saying whether it's good or bad. We're just trying to see there are more to the story than we are being told, right? This is one interpretation. This is one interpretation, and we'll go to another possible interpretation very soon, right? So again, the month of May in the Western society, there are all kinds of demonstrations, all kinds of parades going on, like May Day parade all over in Western Hemisphere. If you live in the West, you know what I'm talking about. The May Day parade. And one of the largest of this parade happened in 1971. It was the beginning, the birth of what they call the hippie movement, the anti-war movement, the protest, the women liberation right happened. There was a massive demonstration in 1971, May, the month of May, because these organizers, nothing is by chance, nothing is by accident. Everything is orchestrated. Everything is designed. You don't just know that. Everything is occult. Everything is energy alignment. This birth of women liberation, women freedom, again, I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm just putting analysis, factual analysis out there. So this movement, this hippie, carefree movement that spread across the Western society, that brought about what we call liberation of women and anti-war protests, this mass upsurge happened in the month of May. There's energy correspondence. We're talking of energy. There's energy alignment. The month of May is very central, very important in the analysis of the event surrounding Virgin Mary, appearance to Fatima. Again, the number 13. The number 13, I'm giving you information so that you can do your own research, right? So numbers are important. Number 13, number 33. This Pope, for example, was killed. They say he died, but he was killed on the 33rd day of his papacy, of his reign as a Pope. And we know that number is very important to secret society. So if you do your research, you will conclude that this Pope was taken out by the Masonic Lodge. I think it's called the P2 Masonic Lodge. They took him out because of certain certain banking scandals going on. These elite controllers stepped in and took him out. 33 day of his reign. If you study Freemason, you see that number 33, that is 33 degree of Freemason, right? Number 33 is very important. And that is why even if you read the New Testament, they tell you that Jesus died at what age? 33. People don't understand the occult relation to all these stories, right? But nothing is by chance. Everything is designed. The 33, number 33, whenever you see number 33 in a big, mega global event, those who are behind it is in the secret society behind it. So they took this Pope out on the 33rd day of his reign. They took him out, right? So that is aside. Again, the message of Virgin Mary, the message of Fatima is very political in nature. That gives me the mindset of Western society. So we've analyzed the possibility of what appeared to these children being an entity from the Pleiadian constellation, a Pleiadian, what we call today as extraterrestrial, right? Another possibility is the power elite, the Atlanticists, came together in collaboration with the church ecclesiastical power. They came together and decided to carry out this psychological operation. Let me read one of a section of that message from Virgin Mary. It reads, "I shall come to ask for the concentration of Russia to my Immaculate Heart. If people attend to my request, Russia will be converted and the world will have peace." Very political, very, very political. At this moment in time, that was the mindset, the cognitive mindset of the Western power elites. They wanted to destroy communism emerging from Russia. And as I said, we've seen that the global elites in the Western society have always utilized religious psyop. Psyop is psychological operation on a mass scale. It happens all the time and it continues to happen. When certain miracles is said to have happened and media is carrying it out and people are flocking there, but it's a psychological operation. So in another instance, we're told Russia will spread its error. Error, of course, is communism. Russia will spread its error throughout the world, raising up wars and persecution of the church. The good will be martyred. The Holy Father will have so much to suffer, and various nations will be annihilated. It's a message consistently against the ideology of communism. This was the Western mindset in 1917. They see this radical. Remember, Vladimir Lenin led the revolution, right? Led the revolution of the working class. The working class. They formed this strong political union and rebelled against the czars, right? The oligarchs of the time, and destroyed the system of the czars, imposing the beginning of communism, right? And the communism was radical because it was extreme left-wing ideology, economic ideology, spreading vast all over the place. And the elite always scared of this extreme upsurge because it's going to distort, disturb, and destroy their comfort, right? So the Western power establishment was, of course, concerned about communism. And as I say, I'm not in support of communism. I think communism is evil. I think this symbol here, hammer and sickle, is the symbol of the planet Saturn. And the planet Saturn, as I said in one of my previous videos, is Satan, right? The controller of this physical dimension, but I'm not going there right now. So the geopolitical tone of the prophecy of Fatima, it is political in nature, it is global, it is a global anti-Russia sentiment in tone. It gives an urgent responsibility on the Western political and religious ideologies to savage the world. If you listen to the tone of the message, it's it gives you that idea that the Western world, we have to galvanize, rally the entire world behind the Western society to destroy communism. That's the tone of the message. So this looked like an engineered psychological operation on the people, right? So supremacy of Roman Catholicism and the papacy is reestablished. You know, when they say the Pope will have a lot to suffer, you know, the people are like minions, you know, they're hive mind. They're going to do what they have to do to protect the Pope. Why? Because communism is anti-religion. So the papacy was already fighting for their head because if communism had spread to Rome, you know, that was the end of papacy. So this seems like an ideology, a covert intelligence operation. And take your time to study many Western societies, intelligence agencies, how they carry out mass behavioral modification. You see that this falls exactly in line with that same ideology, right? So this Fatima dominated the universal church teaching of the church from simple children's catechism to higher theological scholarship. I've discussed this before. So this was papal encyclical spread all over the world talking about, you know, the message of the Virgin Mary and how the church need to pray and devote Russia to the Immaculate Heart. And we know that Russians are very religious as well. So if this message gets into the heart of the Russians, they are going to be antagonistic to the system they found themselves in. So reverse mass behavior engineering, effective, right? So now, one of the problems, and this is in this book here. If you find this book, please read this book. Very intelligent book. Hollywood, Esoteric Hollywood by J. Dyer. Read this book, and let me just read a section of what he said. He said, the errors here are the spread of communism, as I've stated, but the message didn't, but why did the prophetic gift enable the children to understand? Sorry, let me start afresh. The errors here are the spread of communism, but why didn't the prophetic gift enable the children to understand that London, the city of London, the power elite, the Masonic power in London that controls the entire planet, exported Marxism to Russia? And I'll talk about this briefly. What about London spreading her error to the globe with international finance and industrial powers, funding both Nazism and communism? I've done some of that research, and there's evidence. There's a factual, there's a fact to the idea, to the notion that the London banking elite sponsored the rise of Russian revolution. They sponsored it, right? No, the peasants specifically targeted Russia as the villain enemy number one. And what better way to mobilize 1 billion Catholics to target Russia as the global enemy, according to the Mother Mary, when Bolshevism and communism wrecked Russia by great game design, right? He called it great game design. The power elite were the one on the first place in the Western society. The Anglo-Euro alignment, the Anglo-Euro-American establishment were the one who utilized their almighty financial power, the banking industry, to engineer the creation of communism on the first place, right? They designed it. And for what reason did they design it? We might not discuss it here. Might be another video I may make in the future. So Bolshevik Revolution, as well as German Nazi Party, was funded by banking Atlanticists from London and New York. If you do your thorough research, there's evidence to support that the elite, the secret societies, the Freemasons sponsored the emergence of communism as well as the Nazi Party. The Western world sponsored the rise of Hitler. See, what you read in media, what you hear in media, what you hear in news is often lies. Everything you've known about the history of the world is inverted, is upside down. Why do they, one might ask, why do they fund Nazism and communism? What's the point? And then they still go to war and defeat them. There's something called Hegelian dialectics, how the world is controlled, how the world is governed. Read this man's book, brilliant, brilliant author. I love this guy's, one of his books is called Hopes and Tragedy. Read his book. I think another one is Anglo-American Establishment. I don't remember if that's the exact title, but find his book and read it. He's brilliant in analyzing some of this. He's a deep, good researcher. He's done the job of research, factual research, right? So why did the Western power elite fund the rise of Russian Bolshevik Revolution? Why? It's called Hegelian dialectics. If you study philosophy, you're going to come across the philosophy of Hegel. And the elites have adopted the philosophy of Hegelian dialecticism as the very philosophy they utilize to control the masses. Thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, or action, reaction, solution. Remember, they were leading the world to the future, which many people are ignorant of. They're leading the world to the future. The Freemasons, the secret societies, this power global elite, these puppet masters operating from the shadows are leading the world down all these years to the future they design, right? The World War happened. It was a manipulation of different international forces that led to the World War First. And after World War First, what came out? The League of Nations was formed. They're leading the world into a centralized political, economic concentration. So they're leading the world to a certain place, which is taking them systematically, gradual by their plan. After World War First, one of the things that came out of it is the synthesis. That synthesis is the forming of the League of Nations. And by so doing, they are consolidating power for themselves. How about Second World War? Second World War brought two things: the establishment of the State of Israel, which is part of the agenda of these people, as well as the formation of the United Nations, right? Another synthesis coming out of World War Second. And they find the writing of Albert Pike. Albert Pike, several years before World War I and II, he has already told the people what they are going to do. He talked about the formation of the League of Nations. He talked about the formation of the United Nations. He talked about the creation. They were going to create the State of Israel. This was many years before the event actually happened. So, which means there were people in the hidden. There were puppet masters who are controlling everything happening on this planet, right? So, some of these founders, some of these people who funded, the J.P. Morgans, the Rockefellers, the Rothschild family out of Europe. These were the founders of these revolutions, counter-revolution, because the elite have agenda. There's a place they're driving everybody. The masses are like heads of cattle, right? So one will say, well, but there were people who actually witnessed miracle happened. If it is not true, how can all these people and media reported the miracle, the dancing of the sun, for example, and can 3 children just lie? Well, these elites have certain technologies that we're just beginning to understand. Remember, whenever they reveal a piece of technology, it's like already in the Stone Age. Whenever they give, like GPS, for example, everybody's using GPS now. It's been in existence for a long time, only that the elites and the military use it for navigation of the planet, right? So there are technology which is futuristic, which people didn't know about, right? And um, like today, holographic manifestation, holographic technology is real. You can see that the CIA has something called Project Blue Beam, where you can see Jesus Christ or Virgin Mary manifest in the cloud. You see it clearly. You see a plane come across, but it's a holographic. They're bouncing frequency in the upper atmosphere and deflecting it, and people are seeing all these things. Going to these holy places to worship God because they saw the cross of Jesus on the sky, and it's there boldly. The elite have this technology. Project Bluebeam. I'm giving you references for you to go and do your own further studies and see that what I'm saying is truth, right? You see a plane fly across, you see it clearly, but it's a holograph, it's a hologram. It's not real, it's artificial projection. Jesus is standing on the cloud, you're going to see it. They've been using this to control the masses for a long time, right? Is that possibility that these people have that piece of technology that you see the sun, certain sun dancing, is possible, very possible, because this elite technology is the gift of the gods, the gifts of the extraterrestrial entities. Some say the gift of the gray aliens, right? Who came from the Zeta Reticuli or star constellation. Technology you have is the ones that the elite have is advanced. Technology that we don't know exists is like 300 years to the future. People are not aware of it, but the elites are already using it. So it's very possible that there were holographic projections all over the place as a psychological operation of mind control of the masses, of creating hive mind to galvanize the world, to fight, to create this dialectical opposition between communism and capitalism, between the West and the East, because that's how the Freemason fight. If you see one of the symbols of Freemason is ego with two heads. That two heads is dialectical confusion, right? Dialectical confusion. They create a problem and they solve the problem. And then, no, they create a problem and then people react and people are looking for help and they step in and provide the help. And then they become the Messiah and they move forward their agenda, right? So find this article and read CIA Psychological Warfare Operations Case Study in Chile, Jamaica, and Nicaragua. The CIA has intentionally planted false religious miracles, apparitions, especially in South America, places like Jamaica, South America particularly, because they are very deeply religious, very Marian movement all over the place. They have created this false story that ended up being a mass cognitive behavioral modification, right, for the interest of the elite. So this is the world in which we find ourselves, and not taking things from a face value is the way to go, because many things we think are real are not real. We have to question everything. We have to question what we've been taught in churches, in schools. The conventional history has to be retold, because when you understand how the world works, you will know that everything you've ever learned from childhood is but fabrication, but lie. The history we're being taught is not history, it's a lie. They concocted, fabricated lies to control the masses for a certain agenda. And these elites are working with dark forces, right? Please subscribe to my channel. I am the Wisdomizer. Please stay critical.